Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast for our final segment of the day, where we are going to be diving into the first career NFL start for the number 3 overall pick in this past year's draft, Drake Maye, starting for the New England Patriots. I actually was lucky enough to go to the game, got surprised with some tickets earlier that morning, so made the trek out to Foxborough, and ultimately, I think overall it was a pretty good experience. Now, it was very much far from flawless. Maye was 20 of 33, 243 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a fumble. But I think that there was a lot of good in there, and especially considering what this Patriots offense had looked like up to this point in the year. They hadn't had, I'm going to double check this here, but I believe that they had not had a single game with a quarterback passing for over 200 yards. The most that Jacoby Brissett ever got to was 168. So Maye pretty easily smashing that. He helped lead them to the most points scored in the season so far for the Patriots, and this is against a good Texans defense as well. I mean, Will Anderson, oh my God, was he a nightmare for the Patriots in this game. They ended up playing with a couple undrafted free agents at left and right tackle after some injuries. I mean, we understand that this Patriots situation as a whole is not a good one for any quarterback to step in, which is why I do have some sympathy for Jacoby Brissett based off of, he was just kind of thrown out there to be the sacrificial lamb throughout the first few weeks of the season, and he struggled, but it's not like he had golden opportunities in front of him either. That being said, though, Drake Maye provides something that Brissett could not. A couple things, really. It is the top-end athleticism. Brissett, I thought, actually did a fine job of maneuvering the pocket at times throughout his first handful of weeks, but Maye has that upper echelon athleticism in that second gear that I just don't think Brissett could have ever really reached. And then the other part of it is just having the downfield threat. And the fact that opposing teams were really just able to load the box, force the Patriots to throw, and Brissett wasn't ever really targeting any further than 10 yards downfield. You see Drake Maye, for what was a very uneventful first half for this New England offense, they ultimately, took the top off of the defense. Drake Maye taking a shot against one of the best young cornerbacks in the NFL, and Derek Stingley hits Kayshon Boutte perfectly in stride down the right sideline for a touchdown that really got things going. And I say got things going. There was still a lot of ugly in there as well, because then they come out in the second half and it's a Drake Maye getting strip sacked to open. Then you have a punt and a fumble in there as well. So it at least, put some points on the board. Got Gillette a little bit excited because there was a lot of unease in that first half. And then ultimately put together a couple pretty good touchdown drives down the stretch where, you have a couple 70-yard drives to add to that as well. I think ultimately, again, Maye, he had a couple interceptions. The first one was just a sailed ball over the head of, I think it was Demario Douglas, where it wasn't exactly a great decision. If he sort of, he could have fired it in a little bit better and made it at least catchable. I just don't think I love the decision, period. So, there is that. The other interception came on a deflected ball at the line of scrimmage. I have a hard time blaming him. And then the strip sack as well. Got to have a little bit better pocket presence. That's obviously one of the main traits that Drake Maye is going to have to improve upon throughout the course of this year and moving forward. Definitely not an easy task to do behind this terrible Patriots offensive line. But, it's hard to knock him too much. It's more so right now about with Drake Maye, just can he make some of the downfield threatening passes, and it appeared to be that way. Again, 2 70-yard drives and an 86-yard touchdown drive, that's pretty good, especially relative to Patriots' expectations, which are very low at this point, and, definitely not doing victory laps over this type of a performance, but it led to a situation where the Patriots at least can be a more watchable team and a more competent offense with him in it. Now, there's obviously the risk reward to that of, well, even if you're a little bit better on offense and you're still losing every game, what's really the point of playing Drake Maye? I understand. I mean, he is basically the entire hope and future of the franchise at this current moment. Don't know quite how many true building blocks there are long term. Some nice secondary players that we don't have to sort of list through the evaluation of them right now. But Drake Maye really is what this entire New England fan base is banking on at this current moment, and for good reason, because it's not like there is a ton else to be optimistic about on this roster. And, I mean, I think it's really just about getting his feet wet. And I understand I was part of the holdout as long as you really can, but also, Jerod Mayo was in a position leading into that game against the Dolphins last week, and especially following the loss, that his hands were kind of tied. It was impossible to say that Jacoby Brissett provided a better chance to win football games than Drake Maye. And Mayo had pretty openly said throughout the course of, training camp and preseason and into the regular season that this was an ongoing competition, and the player that gives them the best chance to win will ultimately win that spot. And I think he kicked the can down the road as long as he possibly could, but then you have, this idea that the Patriots locker room is, outraged right now with the way that things are going, and they're sort of reeling, and Mayo seemed to be losing the club basically before he even got a chance to be a good coach. He pressed the panic button, he started Drake Maye, and it didn't burn him in week 1. Now, they're going to be headed over to London to face the Jacksonville Jaguars, which should be, a little bit night and day from what the Texans were. Jaguars have good players on the defensive side of the ball, absolutely. Obviously, on that front end specifically is where the majority of their damage is done. But that being said, I believe Josh Hines-Allen, now he appears to be healthy. I thought at one point he went down with an injury, but he's there. Trayvon Walker's a very good player as well. Eric Armstead. So it's not like the Jaguars are untalented. That's a secondary you can throw against. And that's really where I do think at least the Patriots got Drake Maye's feet wet before that London game, because that's where you can start to have him feel a little bit more comfortable in the thick of the action, because there aren't a ton of, great games for him to land necessarily. I'm not going to go through every single game, but if you just run through the schedule right now, there are a number of very tough defenses that he and the Patriots are going to be facing off against, that this Jaguars game can at least be maybe a little bit more of a settled version of just trying to see him get into the thick of things here and, build off of that. The Patriots lost by 20 yesterday, and really, it wasn't super competitive. I mean, they were at least within reach for a lot of the game, which I think is, just kind of all I'm asking for right now as a Patriots fan is just have me be able to watch the game with a little bit of delusion that there's an outside chance that they could win. Again, down by 20 from the third quarter on, but it's like, oh, well, if they string together a couple of drives, then, they could at least be in it. It's not about wins and losses, but it's about the idea of having Drake Maye at least to have meaningful snaps at this point where, If it's a complete blowout by halftime, I mean, it feels a little bit hollow with whatever Maye might do. And, that might just be me being a little bit overly critical, that you just have to take any sort of optimism you can with Maye at this point. But I think that he's going to be able to, live up to the expectations of this season at least, and that is just come out of this year thinking that he can still be the franchise quarterback. And I thought that game against the Texans, like I mentioned, a lot of bad in there. I forgot to mention as well the fact that Maye was their leading rusher in this game on top of it as well. Ramondre Stevenson out in this game, which only made things that much more difficult because the Texans were not allowing any sort of a push on that front line. So the fact that it was, Drake Maye getting into all of these third and long situations, or, he even had a couple pretty good runs himself, but, I do think that once Ramondre is back, this team has shown the ability to actually have success on the ground. I think that could carry over into this game against the Jaguars, depending on the status of Ramondre Stevenson, that this team as a whole and this roster has a long way to go, but I don't think that they are totally visionless. Now, Drake Maye could end up looking terrible the rest of the year, and that would, really put a damper on the statement that I just made, but I really have been a believer in Drake Maye going back to his years at UNC, and ultimately, I think that this was kind of all you could have asked for him for the most part from his debut. Definitely not perfect, but gave the individual moments of showing that he is capable of doing it. Consistency will hopefully come at some point, and that will be what he's graded more so on as the weeks go on here, and as he gets more experience, and hopefully as the roster around him ultimately gets better. But as of right now, just being able to show that he belongs in the NFL, he has an arm talent that the Patriots have been lacking these past handful of years, even going back to as much as Mac Jones had good moments. That throw that May made at the end of the first half is something that I just don't think that Mac Jones could have done. There was a stat that I saw on Twitter earlier today that was the third touchdown of 35-plus air yards since 2020 for the Patriots. One of them was a Mac Jones Hail Mary that was bobbled and ultimately caught by someone else who ran into the end zone. Don't know what the Cam Newton one was off the top of my head, but the fact that May was doing something that Patriots fans had been waiting years for in his first game against a tough defense, again, targeting one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, I think that's a huge win, honestly. And I know the bar is very low. Sounds maybe a little bit pathetic, but it's about the vision. That's what it is right now. Am I a little bit, delusional talking about the Patriots? Possibly, but I don't think I'm, necessarily either over the moon, overhyping him right now. I thought it was a good start. Thought there were a lot of other quarterbacks this year that, would have struggled in that situation more. Getting 21 points out of that game ultimately, pretty impressive in my eyes. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, wherever you may be keeping up with us. Be sure to check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. And we will be back tomorrow afternoon, same time as always, at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Take care. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.